moment. How will we be remembered? Look at the opportunities before us.
This election really isn't about the left versus the right. It's about we the people choosing our government and the choice between freedom versus tyranny.
Nobody has a chronic disease burden like we have. Why are we allowing this to happen to our children? Ultimately, the only thing that will save our country is if we choose to love our kids more than we hate each other.
What is going on here is deeper than politics. It is deeply spiritual. We are being called to rise above the hatred and the fear and the evil.
We need to remember above and beyond that we must love our neighbors, that we must treat other people as we hope to be treated.
You want to be a rebel? You want to be a hippie? You want to stick it to the man? Show up on your college campus and try calling yourself a conservative.
America is going to reach heights that it has never seen before. The future is going to be amazing!
Don't you want healthy children? Don't you want a president that's going to make America healthy again?
The sweet emotion raining all over me.
I come to you today as a former Democrat. I will be a first-time Trump voter tonight.
The people dreamed this country, and it's the people who are making America great again. Making rock and roll.
Good evening, my friends. Oh my gosh, we are going to get a new intro video at some point. I think Joel's probably getting tired of watching me dance backstage when the music starts kicking up, but I will never get tired of it. It dings us on these social medias, though, for the copyright music. So we're working on a new intro video, but hope you're liking it as much as I am. Welcome to the Audit the Vote newsroom, or whatever the heck we're going to start calling this podcast. We're open to ideas, so please drop them in the chat, like, share, and subscribe on whatever platform of social media that you are watching us on. And don't forget to hit the bell so that you can be alerted when we go live. I am finally getting into a routine of doing this on a regular basis, Wednesday nights at 9 p.m., just in time for us to head to CPAC next week, where we will not be doing a podcast at 9 p.m. on Wednesday night. But this is why you have to hit the bells, because we plan to go live as much as we possibly can from CPAC. And we want to make sure that you are getting all the latest information, especially on election integrity happenings in the state of Pennsylvania. So tonight should be a quicker show than usual because I don't have a special guest. So unfortunately, you all have to just look and listen to me yap tonight. But we do have a lot of cool things to cover, and I'm going to go as fast as I can. All that to say that looking at my notes, hit the bell, comment, put the comments. Hey guys, good to see you. Good to see you. A lot of stuff to cover tonight. The first thing that I want to make sure, SD, love the song. Keep it as long as you can. I know we just keep getting dinged for it. Now is not the time to hit the brakes. We need to hit the gas. Tulsi Gabbard confirmed today as the secretary, or I'm sorry, that she's going to be the head of the intelligence community. Can't remember off the top of my head what her actual title is, but she is basically going to be over the CIA and FBI and the entire, you got a video there, Joel, or no? Senate votes to confirm Tulsi Gabbard as top U.S. intelligence official. That is a huge win. I don't think that we're going to have a hard time getting the rest of them through. RFK Jr. Set any day now. I'm hearing that the roadblocks have been somewhat cleared for him, and he's likely going to get confirmed as HHS director. And so it's been a wild ride. DNI, thank you. The best is yet to come. Director of National Intelligence. I knew that. I just have brain farts every once in a while. So looking forward to see what gets uncovered and auditing pretty much everything, because the stuff that just came out this past week of the U.S. aid is blowing my mind. It's like when you think you can't be any more shocked and surprised. You're more shocked and surprised by the next thing that comes out. All that to say, this is not the time to hit the brakes. Now is time to put the gas pedal to the metal in Pennsylvania, because education is key and the fix is local. If you've been following me for a while, you know that that's something I figured out during the first year in our journey with Audit the Vote and hosting Constitution classes from Patriot Academy. I realized how corrupt everything was, all the way down to school board districts, city councils, and dog catchers. And so we are only going to be able to do so much from the top down. The fix has to be from the bottom up. Education is key and the fix is local. And it just so happens that 2025, although it may appear as though it's an off-year election, and I guess technically it is, we have 3 major election integrity positions that are up this coming May. May the 20th is our primary, and our petition period starts February the 18th, which is next week. Can you even believe that we are over a month into the new year? It is just, goes too fast. February 18th to March 10th is an opportunity for you to get on the ballot if you want to get involved. Roll up your sleeves, get out the elbow grease, and be the front face of election integrity in our state, and become either a judge of elections, a majority inspector, or a minority inspector. And when somebody first told me about a judge of elections, early 2021, I can remember thinking, a judge? I can't be a judge. I don't have a law degree. I don't think the gavel is for me. What are you talking about? And it's really just the head honcho at our polling place. The judge of elections is the first line of defense. If things start going awry or shenanigans start happening, they are the ones that make the call at the precinct, the polling location, of whether or not somebody is legitimately registered to vote, if they've already voted, getting them a provisional ballot, and all that fun stuff. And the majority inspector then is basically their second in command. And then you have a minority inspector. And in a perfect world, there's a mixture of Democrats and Republicans throughout those different officers, and they are elected positions. And so we will elect new judges of elections, majority and minority inspectors this year. And I am begging everybody who knows that 2020 was not the safest and most secure and freest and fairest election ever, even though they certainly tried to beat that down tried to make us choke that one down for 4 years. I think we successfully won the narrative battle, and the public knows that it was not a free and fair election. If we want to fix it, we need to get involved. So please consider running for one of those positions, or at least figuring out who the heck they are in your backyard. It's basically your polling location. Wherever you go to vote, the judge of elections is the person there that runs it. So especially if you're in an area that's maybe not so great, let's get involved. This is how we fix it. I agree, Lola Days. There's no such thing as an off-year election. Amen. These are critical. This is the stuff that comes knocking at your door first. Man, did we have to learn that the hard way in COVID. Awesome. SD says her county doesn't have them. Separate to run for majority and minority inspectors, just under inspector. Okay, and that's possible that it's different. So it's inspector or judge of elections. But either way, the more eyes we have on the ground, especially in those deep blue areas, the better. So consider running for that, because next week starts the petition period. Get in touch with your local Republican Party, the local GOP, or you can go to your election office and they'll get you the paperwork that you need. I know that different groups have been doing trainings all across the state of how to actually get on the ballot, how to fill out the petition. It's super simple. If you've run for precinct committee person, it's pretty much the same. You only need 10 signatures from people in your neighborhood to say, yes, we want you on the ballot, and your name will go on the ballot in November. Of course, if you register as you can't cross file. I shouldn't speak out of turn because I don't know the nitty gritty details. I probably should, but I know it's a Democrat and a Republican, and then in November they'll get to vote on which is which, and we probably will end up behind the 8 ball running a bunch of write-in campaigns at the last minute, which is what we don't want to do, which is why I'm pushing this February 18th to March 10th. Look into it, see if it's something that is for you. Okay, very good, very good. Let's see where are we going next. All right, the biggie of the week. Did Josh Shapiro orchestrate the assassination attempt with Joe Biden on President Trump on July 13th of 2024? I know that was the big hullabaloo and hubbub this week, and while I think that they're entirely capable, unfortunately, of doing such things, the evidence suggests that it's definitely not clear whether or not this is real. And what I'm having Joel pull up, so I came across this story on a Facebook page called the Pennsylvania Arrest Warrants Facebook page. So, and that's what Joel has pulled up right here. At first glance, it looks like a government organization. In fact, that's what it says in the introduction. It says it's a government organization. But what here, I'm walking you guys through my thought process of kind of how I figure this stuff out, because what we're realizing is we've been lied to for so long. How do we even dig for the truth anymore? How do we know what to believe and what not to believe? And so hopefully this will give you some insight on that. If you go to the information section of that particular Facebook page, it pretty much says that, and of course I had it up because my eyes are awesome. I can't read it. I gotta get it on my other screen. Government organization info. It says under organizations that manage this page, the person or group responsible for this page hasn't completed our verification process yet. And so that tells you that it's saying it's a government organization, but we don't have confirmation that it is. So that is initially suspect then because of where you see it posted. I thought, all right, well, and then I scrolled down, I started looking at some of the other things they posted, and it all appeared to be just news articles and such. But what we have discovered through further investigation is, in fact, the complaint that we saw that was originally posted on this Facebook page is a legitimately filed complaint by a lady by the name of Hadassah Feinberg. Now, I am in no way disparaging this young woman. I've never met her. In fact, I never even heard of her until this report came up. But she is alleging that she is a federal whistleblower and that Josh Shapiro is involved in the assassination attempt on President Trump. However, if you look into her background, and again, this is just facts, I'm not disparaging this woman at all, don't know her, never met her. Sure, she's a fine lady, but her credibility gets called into question when you look at her background, because she has filed quite a few suits in the past that haven't gone anywhere. Specifically back in 2021 in Feinberg versus Kermanov, I believe, she was representing herself appealing a child support order. The court noted that she submitted over 100 documents alleging false testimony by the opposing party, but these were not presented during the initial hearing, and the court ultimately denied her appeal, suggesting procedural missteps and challenges in her legal approach. And so while I respect people tremendously that are digging into the process of filing lawsuits pro se, which it is not an easy thing to figure out, and some folks do have great success with that. It looks like she's been at this a while, filing lawsuits on her own, and my sources on the ground are telling me that she does not in fact have the evidence that she would need for this criminal complaint to go to the next level. And in this particular video, Joel, click on that so they can see where to go. And again, I could be wrong. Do I think that these characters are capable of orchestrating the assassination attempt? Well, somebody orchestrated it, so yes, I do. But I don't know that they're going to be this careless that it would surface in such a way as it appears to be on her YouTube channel. And when you start really glancing at that piece of it and that information, it calls the entire thing into question. So, head on a swivel, eyes open. Never know. We're surprised. If you had told me 4 years ago this is where I would be shocked. But I will be even more shocked if this turns out to be true. And the other thing is, in this particular video, she is alleging that Josh Shapiro has in fact been charged, which according to Butler County records in the police department, he has not. There is no record of an actual charge, only the record of the criminal complaint, which again, the criminal complaint is legit. She did file a complaint. She is alleging that Josh Shapiro conspired with Joe Biden to assassinate President Trump. But we're just going to have to wait to see what shakes out. I'm not holding my breath. Yeah. Yeah. Liberty Lion. Yes. If Leah says someone's nuts, they're probably a little nuts. So that's, yeah, I hope that's not the case. Again, she looks sweet. Is it possible? Yes, but it's not looking good. when it comes to the evidence. That's that on the Shapiro thing. Either way, that dude, we are going to have a hard time in Pennsylvania kicking him out of the governor's seat. And I do think that he is queued up to run in 2028 for the presidential. They would be smart to pick him, actually. He's very slick. He's very smooth. Joel and I were working together today and just talking about this. He's got the Gavin Newsom-esque way about him, that he's just very suave, and he's very good, which is another thing that made me call this whole thing into question, because it's not that I don't think he could be taken down. I just think it's not going to be that easy. And this looked, the sniff test on this one looked a little bit too easy for me. Of course, that was pre the wildfires in California. I think Gavin Newsom sealed his fate when the fires that got out of control, and he did absolutely nothing to help the people of California. I think he's done. But Josh Shapiro is not. And so we have a lot of work in our state to do, because he is Soros funded, deep state, in my opinion, communist. And we definitely have to keep him from certainly taking the White House. And it'd be great if we could boot him out of the governor's seat so we can get back to fair elections. That would be an easy route. Next story. Oh my gosh, I can't believe I'm even having to talk about this. Scott Pressler, early vote action, and the online BROUHAHA, which I stole that from Blue Bloods. I used to really like the TV show Blue Bloods when my mom was alive. Haven't watched it in a while, but there's a character on there that says BROUHAHA all the time. I like that word. I think I'm gonna start using it more often. There was an online BROUHAHA with Scott Pressler that I didn't even know about before I made a post, but you're seeing the picture that Joel has pulled up there. And apparently MAGA folk went absolutely bonkers when this picture surfaced, because it's clearly two men that are interested in one another. And I could care less. So when I made the post that I did, that has since caused quite the stir, because Scott Pressler has a giant fan base and a huge platform on Twitter with his over 2 million followers, I only made this post. I'm not going to read the whole thing. If you're following me on X or Facebook, you saw it. You can look it up and read it for yourself. I'm getting a lot of hate on this, saying, how could you? You're jealous. Scott Pressler absolutely delivered Pennsylvania for President Trump, and you're a crazy beast. And I even got some people that unfollowed me from this. But the reason I made this post was not because he was trending, because there was a MAGA hater who went and said, you're gay, we should kick him out of the MAGA movement, which let's talk about that for a second. Now, let's be clear, I'm a Christian. As a Christian, I believe the Bible is God's inherent word. And it does say that homosexuality is a sin. I didn't write it. God wrote it. So I do believe that. However, MAGA is a political movement. And if you understand that Christianity is a relationship with Jesus, MAGA cannot be equal to Christian. A political movement cannot be a Christian at the same time. It's like you are comparing bread to eggs, not even in the same category. And so I understand why people are running to his defense, because why would you kick somebody out of a political movement that as a Christian, we kind of need to push these policies, or our religious freedoms are going to go down the drain? You don't have to agree with his lifestyle or affirm it or approve it in order to work alongside him when he pushes his conservative values, some of which I do largely agree with. So I had no intention, although I got quite a bit of hate of it, that I was jumping on the bandwagon of Scott Pressler and his anti-gay get out of the MAGA movement. My beef with him has absolutely nothing to do with that. Instead, he's been posting a ton on his platform on X about election integrity, specifically in Pennsylvania, and cleaning up the voter rolls. And my concern with Scott Pressler is that he is a get out the vote activist, and he's incredibly good at it. He's obviously very good at building a following, and he worked his tail off in the state of Pennsylvania to register voters and to get out the vote. Nobody is trying to take that away from him. The challenge is election integrity is a very intricate process. We've been on the ground for 4 years trying to fight this at the most local level. I know way more about the system and the process and the federal laws than I ever cared to, and I don't believe Mr. Pressler does. And I think some of the things that policies that he's advocating for example, he is pro automatic voter registration. He wants to register hunters and fishermen when you go get a license to hunt or fish, to have a way to automatically register them to vote. Now, on the surface, if you are focusing on get out the vote only, that sounds brilliant, because most of them are probably conservative values. And he has even been posting about 30% of hunters in Pennsylvania are not registered to vote. So on the surface, That looks like a brilliant plan. But what he doesn't know, or he's just ignoring, or I'm not sure what, is that automatic voter registration is a disaster for election integrity. It puts all the control of the system into the State Department. There is no way to verify for the public whether or not people are legitimately registered voters, whether they're legal citizens. There are all kinds of loopholes. And I was just on the phone this week with Captain Seth Keschel, who explained to someone else that we were on the phone with that every state literally that is now a hardcore blue state, examples being the state of Washington and Oregon, had automatic voter registration as a precursor. So that is a recipe for complete disaster in Pennsylvania. And so I'm kind of jumping up and down, yelling and screaming on Scott Pressler's platform because it is so large, to try to get his attention to say, hey, can we work together and educate you so that you can put your efforts in the right places that will bear fruit instead of not? And that's being nice about it. And he's not exactly responding. So Liberty Line, how about no, Scott? Yes. And even he posted something about using AI to look at the voter rolls and that he's finding double voters in Pennsylvania and other states, New Jersey and Florida. And here's the thing, folks, Audit the Vote has found that stuff 4 years ago. I personally canvassed a house in Wexford, Allegheny County, of a couple who were registered to vote in Florida and Pennsylvania, and they both had recorded votes, one in Florida and one in Pennsylvania for the 2020 election. And they told me to my face, we did not vote in Florida. We've been here for 2 years. We voted in Pennsylvania. We don't know why there's a vote credited for us in Florida. They signed an affidavit. I got them to swear under penalty of perjury that that was in fact the case. We ran it up the chain. We even sent it to law enforcement in the state of Florida. It went nowhere. The elected officials don't care. So he can scream on his platform of 2 million people that we're going to send letters to the county and let them know that this is happening. Guess what? We've already done that. They don't give a crap. We need a strategic plan, which we're working on, and I don't really have time to get into on this podcast, nor would you care to listen to it because it's incredibly boring. In fact, if you're having trouble sleeping, just crack open Act 77, which is our election code, and start reading. And you'll probably, before you get to page 2, I mean, this is not fun stuff to talk about, but it does need dug into and it needs done. And a simple AI program identifying double voters is just not going to cut it. And we would love to be able to work with Mr. Pressler and get some real progress if he will listen to us and work with us and help us. And I know others in the election integrity movement on the grassroots side of things have tried before. They have not gotten anywhere. And so we're going to give it a shot still because he's a hard worker. And if we can get him working on the right things, we might actually make some progress. All right. Before I get into the next story, if anybody has any comments, concerns, questions, I actually had people even unfriend me because they thought I was just attacking Mr. Pressler. And really, that was not the point at all. So if you have any questions or, accusations, anger things to say, feel free to hit the chat and we shall discuss. Liberty Line, yeah, but once you understand Act 77, you lose sleep, right? It puts you to sleep. This stuff is not fun to talk about or to post. Come on, give me a break. We showed my ex post. What else do we have? Hey, by the way, I am really trying to get as many J6ers as possible on this podcast. We've had Sarah Maccabee. I'm working on getting her and Colton Maccabee back on here. And my very good friend, Mr. Brad Bennett, we had last week. YouTube actually took that one down, supposedly because of our intro video. And then we played another video that Brad had given us that had copyright music in it. And so that's supposedly why YouTube took it down. Joel is in the process of editing out those 2 videos, and he's going to repost it on YouTube if that's where you're watching us at. Incredible story. A guy I've known 20 years is part of the J6 community and spent 2 months in federal prison. I interviewed him last week and he did an incredible job. So when Joel, you can view that still on Rumble, and it is on X, and it's on our other platforms, but it is not on YouTube currently. I would just encourage you to go back. And Sarah Maccabee, if you don't know her story, Sarah and Colton Maccabee, It is mind-blowing. I really thought with the pardons that those J6ers would get paraded all across the new media. By new media, I mean the really big guys like Tucker and the Rogans and the Tim Pools and the people that have these giant platforms. Why are we not getting these stories out to the public so that we can continue to tell the truth about what happened? What you notice about all the J6ers is their stories all match up. That's kind of how you know they're not lying, because they're all the same. And certainly they couldn't have all gotten together and made sure they were corroborating one another's stories, because they all lived there from all over the country. There's 1,500 of them, and that's just not possible. So I feel incredibly called to get as many of those stories out. So if you know a January 6er who would be comfortable telling their story and coming on this podcast, please send them my direction. We would love to do that. And go ahead and check out the ones that we have already done. Liberty Lion, got to use royalty-free music. I know. That's why we have to redo the intro video. I love that intro video. Hey, Sharon. Would it be better, as she's asking, would it be better as a poll watcher than inspector? Excellent question. An inspector working the polls is way better than just watching the polls. So if you can and are able to commit the time, I would recommend running for a position in working, because as you're working there, you are in a position to actually do something should shenanigans arise. However, if you can't commit to that, a poll watcher is better than not being involved at all. And I feel like the poll watcher is almost like the dipping your toes into the pool, swimming pool, if you will, to test the water. Let's see what election day is like. I'm not really sure if I can handle this. That's a good way to get started. So I lead with that. And Audit the Vote, as you know, probably put together a really good training for poll watcher program that we're going to continue to use and attempt to deploy statewide, so that our poll watchers are more prepared. And everything is really well documented, like we did this past election cycle, which, by the way, I would argue is one of the many reasons President Trump won the state of Pennsylvania. So I do take issue. Let's back up a second. I do take issue with Scott Pressler taking sole credit for President Trump's win in Pennsylvania, because he wasn't around for 4 years and didn't surface really until the last 6 months of 2024 with an enormous get out the vote effort that was absolutely necessary. But his PAC early vote action is ignoring what the data is showing. And so one question I got this week was, why did you wait so long to post this information? Well, that's a great question. That is because the state official deadline for the counties to submit their certified election results is February 1st of the calendar year following the election. So our election was November. Why can't I remember? What was the date? I just remember November 3rd, 2020, like it was yesterday. Was it November 5th? Yes, November 5th, 2023, game changer. So November 5th, Donald Trump was elected, actually called in the middle of the night, November 6th. Still blows my mind they called it then, and that he's actually inaugurated. He's our president. But the counties then start reconciling the ballots, and there's a process to which we get to what was January 6th, and then ultimately January 20th, where we inaugurated President Trump. And so in that process, the counties have deadlines according to the law when they absolutely have to have everything submitted officially. And that deadline is February 1st of the following calendar year. So we waited to look at a lot of the data and to report the data until the final numbers were in. So Joel, if you will pull up a couple of those X posts, the first thing I want to show people is that the turnout, the data, this is according to the data, by the way. And spoiler alert, I don't think the data is accurate to begin with. Our SURE system, the statewide uniform registry of electors, that's our electronic database, is wildly inaccurate. So that's problem numero uno, is the fact that we're probably not dealing with legit data in the first place. But what the data is showing us, when you compare the turnout in 2024 to 2020, we actually had a lower percentage of newly registered voters coming out to vote. This cycle, we had a 78% turnout from the total number of new registered voters. So my data guy, Vic Obertoli, incredibly brilliant software engineer and programmer, takes the voter rolls and runs a SQL software program to figure out how many newly registered voters came into the rolls in the last year. And because when you register to vote, your date of registration gets recorded into the statewide database, and it's publicly available. So you can get that number. Then you can run that same list and go, okay, how many of those that registered newly this year actually showed up at the polls? And shocker, 2024, 78% of the newly registered voters came out and voted. In 2020, that number was 85%. So if we are going to attribute President Trump's victory to the new voter registrations and saying we just turned out the vote, how do you explain the data that shows otherwise? Again, they stole 2020, and we can't really rely on the data anyway because it's riddled with errors, which our canvassing effort proved. However, this is why election integrity and get out the vote efforts are completely separate animals and should remain as such, in my humble opinion, when moving forward in the election integrity fight. They need both. Both are absolutely necessary. We have to turn out votes. If without voter registration and getting people to get out the vote, that's kind of a no-brainer that you're going to lose the election. But at the same time, if the process is not legitimate, if it's easily manipulated and you can rig it, what good is registering voters if you don't have an honest process? So despite the fact that they go hand in hand, the techniques behind getting each one of those to be successful, I would argue, are wildly different. So, Joel's letting me know we have a record number of viewers tonight. Please like, share, and subscribe, and hit the bell on the social media platforms because Audit the Vote is doing a weekly podcast. We are going live at 9 p.m. on Wednesday nights, except for next Wednesday because I will be at CPAC, and we're going to have a great time at CPAC. So hit the bell so that you can be notified when we go live. We'll probably go live multiple times throughout next week, but we will not, hey, John, we will not be doing a podcast at 9 o'clock because obvious reasons. Okay. Did I go through all that stuff? I think I did. Last couple of things. Something else to note. I have a little challenge with Mr. Pressler. The difference between Audit the Vote and Early Vote Action. Audit the Vote is a nonprofit. We are a 501c4 organization. Early Vote Action, his company, is actually a PAC. There's nothing wrong with PACs. We need PACs. And it's your filing status that's different with those in terms of the IRS and the government and the way you have to report your donors and your funds. And as his Early Vote Action PAC, what Joel has pulled up there is that he is in fact bringing in tens of thousands, millions of dollars. Actually, someone sent me a spreadsheet right before I went live to show that in 2024 alone, his Early Vote Action PAC brought in over $2 million. Now, am I criticizing him for raising money? Heck no. It takes money to win campaigns. There's no question. But a lot of his supporters are saying he's grassroots. I would argue that he might have started grassroots. But as soon as you cross over, and there is the list of the donors and how much they gave, as soon as you cross over into the millions of dollars that you're bringing in, you are no longer grassroots, my friend. And that's okay. Just let us help you so we can actually make some real progress. That's all we're asking for, buddy. So yeah. There you go. I'm not going to go down through them all because, again, I'm not putting anybody down for starting PACs and raising money. It's necessary. But they're two different animals. I had a ton of people go, well, I never heard of you and I heard of him. So his efforts must have been what won Pennsylvania. Just like, oh, don't have the time for this. So maybe if some of those people are tuning in, I've explained myself and you can see that my concerns are in fact warranted. And we will see where this goes from here. Joel, pull up the post. I put a post up today explaining the difference between a get out the vote effort and an election integrity effort and how separate they are. And they're both vital and necessary. But I guess I also take a little issue with Early Vote being the name of his PAC. Early Vote Action implies that he is very much for early voting. While I agree that it's a game we have to play while the laws are in place in Pennsylvania, it's not good long term. So Audit the Vote is going to really push to get rid of that early voting window, to go back to one-day elections, all paper ballots counted by hand, no more machines. That's our platform. That's what we're running with because that's how we secure the process. And while I understand the philosophy behind playing the game while we have these laws in place, I don't think policy-wise it's smart long-term for election integrity. So that's the other issue that I have with his Early Vote Action PAC. And again, it's nothing to do with the fact that he's gay or I'm not jealous of his enormous platform. Listen, I've met President Trump twice. I've had some of the most insane doors open and opportunities that I never imagined. I'm not jealous of the man. I just want to steer his efforts election integrity, or just leave it to us, or let us help you go in the right direction, which he doesn't apparently be willing to do. So there you go. Liberty line. Ouch. Oh, Penny. Very good. All right. So get out the vote and election integrity are very different animals. We're going to get into some Constitution training because this whole journey started for me in the fall of 2020 when I took Patriot Academy's Constitution Alive class with one of my very best friends, Karen Taylor, and I was blown away with how much I didn't know. One of these things that I did not know was the Constitution has kind of a little booklet of papers that went along with it called the Federalist Papers. If you know what the Federalist Papers are, hit the chat. I will be impressed if you've heard of those before, because pre-2020 and pre this Constitution class, I had no idea what those things were. U.S. aid, let's get into other news, and this is going to be relevant. I'll come full circle with this. But the U.S. aid employee suspension blocked in current events. A federal judge temporarily blocked President Trump's executive order that aimed to place over 2,200 U.S. aid employees on paid leave pending further review. What? So, newsflash, we voted for this because the federal government prior to January 20th of 2025 was the largest employer in our nation. Think about that for a second, folks. Our federal government was designed to have very specific, few and defined powers and responsibilities. And in 250 years, it has grown to be the largest employer in the nation. That is a problem. So the fact that they are, not to mention, if you're following this U.S. aid crap and everything that is coming out of it, like underwater basket weaving, or let's go figure out if we can grow monkeys in a jungle, or all the crazy, the foreign aid, everything that's being filtered, the left is losing their mind because clearly we're uncovering a giant money laundering scheme on their end through something called U.S. aid. I don't even know if I'm saying it right. Am I saying it right? And however, the deep state is not going quietly. They are fighting back in the court system and attempting to block what I think is a beautiful display of patriotism in cutting these federal agencies, slash them all, go back to the 17 things that the Constitution was designed for the federal government to protect the states and to protect our rights from government coming and infringing upon them. And yet it's wildly overblown. So the reason I mentioned the Federalist Papers, and thank you very much, Babbage 3, you read the Federalist Papers. I am impressed. They are not easy reads. It's about the equivalent of reading Act 77. But I'm impressed. The anti-federalist paper, you know what? And I went back and forth with some of my coworkers and students in my Constitution classes. I got to say, with everything we experienced over the last 4 years, I might have been an anti-federalist. I kind of get people like Patrick Henry who refused to sign the Constitution because he warned us that Patrick Henry is the give me liberty or give me death guy, founding father. He warned us that if we put a federal government in place, that it would get too big and it would eventually infringe on our liberties. And let's face it, he wasn't wrong. So again, of course, I'm not anti-Constitution, but here's what I wanted to explain to you. And hopefully in our efforts of educating the public is that the House, Congress, there are things that the founders put in place into the Constitution and then later explained in detail in the Federalist Papers of how to deal with a judicial branch that is wildly out of control and overstepping its bounds. What they can do is Mike Johnson, Speaker of the House, has the authority to bring impeachment articles up against any judge that steps outside their boundaries and tries to legislate from the bench and block stuff like this. The president has the authority to shut down a federal agency like this that has become completely corrupt. And so Speaker Johnson should be filing articles of impeachment against those judges. And that's what gets them to essentially back off and drop the crap, and we can cut the waste. And I want to point you to a couple Federalist Papers. So the Federalist Papers were written, by the way, here's your education. Education is key. The fix is local. Hopefully you're watching this wanting to get educated. If not, you're getting educated anyway. John Jay, Alexander Hamilton, and James Madison were the three founding fathers responsible for writing the Federalist Papers, and there's 80 some of them. I want to say 87. I should know that off the top of my head. They were selling the idea of the states ratifying the Constitution, specifically to New York, quite a bit. I know there's other states in there, which I should know this. Clearly I have to go back and read more of my Federalist Papers. Essentially, they were written anonymously. I'm not sure how they even were able to uncover that it was those three men, but history has apparently proven that those were the three men that wrote the Federalist Papers. And they were essentially saying to the states, this is why you need to ratify the Constitution. This is why we need a federal government, and you need to adopt this particular piece of this document. In Federalist Paper 81, Alexander Alexander Hamilton, addresses concerns about the judiciary becoming too powerful. So if you want to read about it, it's in I'm going to cite 4 different Federalist Papers to show you that Mike Johnson has the authority. Our founders intended for the power to stay within the people, to give the most power to the legislative branch of government. He argues that Congress has the power to structure and regulate the courts, ensuring that they do not overreach their authority. He specifically states that the legislature has the ability to impeach judges if they act improperly. Would you call them acting improperly by trying to block a president from exercising his authority as commander-in-chief to shut down a corrupt agency? I would say so. Next, Federalist 78, also Alexander Hamilton. The paper outlines the principle of judicial review, also emphasizes that the judiciary is the weakest branch because it lacks enforcement power. Interesting how we've let the tail wag the dog for so long through our judicial branch. That didn't happen overnight, by the way. Hamilton stresses that the legislative branch ultimately holds power over the judiciary as it controls funding and court structure. That's the second Federalist paper. Federalist paper number 51, written by James Madison. Madison discusses separation of powers and how each branch of government has checks on the others. While this paper doesn't specifically mention the judiciary stepping out of its lane, it reinforces that the legislative branch is the dominant power in a republic. That goes for your state government too, folks. Lastly, Federalist 66, Alexander Hamilton uses the word bridle, and this is what we talk about in our Constitution classes through Patriot Academy, which, by the way, I'm not sure when my next one is starting. If you haven't taken any of my Constitution classes yet, get on our email list and stay tuned on our social media, and we'll let you know when our spring session is going to start and what class it is going to be, because those are barn burners of inspiration and our Patriots Anonymous meetings that we call them after the video section ends. Hamilton uses the term bridle to describe the power of impeachment as a check by the legislative branch upon the executive branch. In fact, he quotes, "Several of the state constitutions have followed the example. As well, the latter as the former seem to have regarded the practice of impeachments as a bridle in the hands of the legislative body upon the executive servants of the government." A bridle is what they use on a horse to rein it in, and he uses that specific terminology for the legislative branch to take control and stop the judicial branch from getting out of power. So, Mike Johnson, get those impeachment papers up and running for these judges that are trying to shut down the president's rightfully executed orders that he's getting rid of these government agencies that are so bloated and so overblown with not just spending, but employees. 2,200. No, you can't fire these 2,200 people. Why? I mean, getting into government service is a service. You're not Nancy Pelosi. What did I see today? Her salary is like $200,000, but she's worth over $280 million. How does that happen? And she's not the only one. She's just one that floated across my desk. Before we move on in this context, Hamilton emphasizes the power of impeachment serves as a crucial mechanism for the legislature to restrain and hold accountable the executive branch, ensuring a balance of power within the government. So you have 4 different Federalist papers written by 2 different founding fathers telling the legislative branch that you have the power to impeach judges when they get out of line. And that process starts with the Speaker of the House. So let's go. Yes, Sandy, they used the name Publius at the time. Publius, it was an anonymous name. And I don't remember how they found out it was actually those 3. I should know that. We're winding down. How am I doing? 43 minutes. Oh, we're going to be shorter. I already told everybody that we're going to be at CPAC next week, so we'll have no live show. But stay tuned because we'll be going live with anybody that we can get to talk to us that is there. And I'm going to check the comments to see if anybody has any questions, concerns, hurl insults at me if you want to. That is fine as well. Congress can remove their cases from their calendar. Lola Days. Amen, lady. And we have a really funny video that is one of my favorites. So if you're new to this podcast, I like to close every podcast with a funny video because while I survived the last 4 years of 2020 to 2024 was a lot of laughter. Laughter is food for the soul. I believe it gets endorphins going in your brain that you absolutely need. And so I like to close the podcast out with a funny video because a lot of what we talk about on here is kind of heavy. Joel has one of my favorites. Don't throw it up there yet. Let me just read through the comments, see if there's anything else. If you have never seen our work before, please go to auditthevotepa.com and see what we're all about. Our canvassing results from 12 different counties. We hit the ground running in early 2021, middle of 2021, early 2022, we wrapped up a canvassing effort where we knocked on doors in 12 different counties. And we asked 3 questions to the people at the door. We said, did you vote in 2020? Are you registered? How many people are registered to vote at this address? Are you registered to vote? And we compared those results. Oh, that's the poll watcher effort we did on our website for Allegheny County, which I hear the RNC, by the way, is touting as their success. They're saying they had 100% poll watcher coverage in Allegheny County. Little bit of an exaggeration, because I beat the pavement and got a donor to help us pay poll watchers, which many of you donated back to Audit the Vote. Thank you so much. You helped pay our operating expenses for the upcoming year. And so our canvassing effort revealed in 12 counties, there wasn't a clean one. So nobody can sit across the table from me and say that 2020 was legit, because I knocked on doors myself in 5 different counties where I had people say, that person does not live here. I don't know who they are. But sir, they were registered to vote here and they have a ballot that was recorded in the 2020 election. No, I don't know who that is. Okay, that's a problem. When you're seeing that in 12 different counties, red ones, blue ones, doesn't really matter. Fairly certain we did not have a free and fair election, which might be why the turnout results, we had a lower turnout this time, 78% of the newly registered voters versus 85% of the newly registered voters in 2020. Oh, the last graph I forgot. I know I'm going backwards. I'm all over the place as I read the comments. Joel, put the one up that has the 3 red bars that show how many newly registered Republican voters we had. This is another eye-opening thing from the data, is that we looked at, Vico, our data analyst expert, looked at the newly registered. There it is. Maybe we did show that. So the first line is 2016. So when he looked at how many newly registered Republican voters did we have, or I'm sorry, back that up. It's not newly registered. He looked at the total Republican voters right before the election in 2016, or I guess it would have been 2015 going into, is that right? No, it would have been 2016. They got inaugurated in 2017. He looked at the total number of Republican voters right before the 2016 election, and that's the number you see there. Then he looked at the total number of Republican voters right before the 2020 election, and that's the middle number. Notice it's smaller than 2016. And then last number was from 2024, looked at the total number of Republican voters going into the presidential election. It's actually less. So if registration is how we're winning elections, we're going down. Now, I don't claim to have all the answers, but it just shows you we have a problem. And this is why election integrity matters. And our work is truly just getting started. So with that being said, if you are not already donating to Audit the Vote, the first person that goes on our website, I do this every podcast, and subscribes to give some type of recurring monthly donation. If you're not already, we will send you an Audit the Vote t-shirt to say thank you for your support, because without you, we would not be able to keep the lights on and keep going and keep this fight up, which we are realizing is a generational battle. We're not going to get back to a free and fair election, transparent election process overnight. It's going to take a decade or more. And so thank you to those that have been on this journey with us and that have supported us with your time, efforts of volunteering, with your prayers, and of course, with your dollars. So let's see. What else is on here? Any other comments? You can yell at me if you think I'm crazy about Scott Pressler. That's okay too. That was a good link to explanation. Thank you, Sandy, for the Federalist Papers. Education is key. The fix is local. That is correct. And that was the other thing they're not mentioning is the voter roll efforts. We finally found something. For Pete's sake, like and share. We found something that helps get people off of the voter rolls. There was a great group of patriots that was not even Audit the Vote. There are plenty of grassroots all over our state that work their butts off. I don't know if they even want named, so I won't name them, but a huge undertaking in an effort in donors where they sent letters to registered voters who lived out of state that were still on the Pennsylvania voter rolls, asking the registered voter, hey, will you submit a letter to this county election office and tell them you don't live here anymore and you want your name removed from the voter rolls? And guess what? It worked. So we had tens of thousands of names removed from our voter rolls right before the 2020 election due to a massive effort that they deployed in all 67 counties. I was not part of that initiative, but it sure as heck, I think, made a difference in terms of not having the bloated credit line to pull from if they were wanting to stuff the ballot box or assign votes electronically behind the scenes like we watched in 2020. We all went to bed. President Trump was up 700,000 votes. And then somehow they found votes all week long. How do we think they did that? So, and they couldn't pull it off again because we had something called Act 88 that was passed right before the gubernatorial race in 2022. The Senate passed a law requiring the counties to at least report how many outstanding mail-in ballots they had left to be counted by midnight on election night. So they had to report that number, and they couldn't just dump ballots all week in the middle of the night and find them without any trace. And so that, I believe, had a huge impact on President Trump's victory in 2024 in Pennsylvania. So it was a team effort. Was Scott Pressler a part of it? You betcha. But so were a lot of other people, and you guys need to know that. So Team Red, of course, Allegheny County, yes, Liberty Lion, but there were others that fundraised for that, and they deployed it all over the state of Pennsylvania, and they were seeing, they're probably putting a report together of some sort, but right around 20% of the total number of people they had on the list that they sent a letter to actually responded to the county and were removed from the voter rolls. That's a big chunk. Now, while it's not a good long-term fix, right? Because with everything being electronic, the State Department can just hit a button. Somebody can just click a button and bloat the voter rolls. And we see it all the time going up and down because we've been monitoring the voter rolls since 2020. We've been getting them. Other patriots actually collaborating together. They're $20 every time you get them. And we've been getting them every week as they come out. The newly registered voters that are dropped every week, we've been getting since November 3rd, 2020, and comparing and analyzing. And so I know, Lola, I'm trying to be nice. I forget why I started on that rabbit trail of the registered voters. Anyway, it's complicated. There's a lot of work. Thank you guys for your support. How am I doing? 51 minutes. I don't really have to talk an hour. I don't know why I'm still yapping. No show next week. We will be at CPAC in DC. Check out. I agree. The Amish really came out for Trump, but you know what, Richard? They came out in 2022. And we know that because, well, 2020 also, they came out in large numbers in 2020 also. And we know that because we were pounding the pavement, getting signatures for an audit on our petition. And the community, the Amish community, was livid in 2020. And we had a lot of signatures from those folks. So I would ask folks on the ground in Lancaster County if they think that Scott Pressler deserves credit for getting out the Amish vote. Just saying, got to be on the ground, folks. And I'm not knocking the guy's work ethic and his efforts, but the real deal's on the ground. That was long. I'm just rambling at this point. Anything else I got to tell them? I think someone just asked me if I have Pressler's number. Yes, I've been on the phone with him before. I met him in person once. I'd love to just sit down with him and explain some of the nuances to this so that he could put his efforts in the right places. Or heaven forbid, actually promote the grassroots on his 2 million platforms and say, shout out to all these organizations that did great work. If you want to work on this, reach out to them. If you want to work on that, reach out to this group. Heaven forbid we share, but I digress. All right, Joel, cue up. Okay, before you play the funny video, this is my favorite. We're going to close out with a funny video. Jim Breuer. I'm a huge Jim Breuer junkie. Joel is joking about, could we get him on the podcast? First of all, that would be a small miracle. But second of all, I would totally fangirl out. And I don't think I could even do it. But I grew up watching Saturday Night Live and Jim Breuer as Goat Boy as a kid. And when he started speaking out in 2020, I could tell that he was awake to what was going on. I don't need to say on our side, but you could tell that he was awake to what was going on. I just fell in love even more with him. And so I love that he was willing to speak out. And Joel has a really funny video that we're going to play from Jim Breuer speaking at the Reawaken America tour that Clay Clark and General Flynn did as they traveled the country. And so we're going to cue that up, play it. We're going to get a really good laugh. I'm going to try not to laugh like crazy out loud like I did backstage when Joel was giving me the preview of it. And we'll see you guys in 2 weeks, but I'll still see you next week just from CPAC, not in the podcast format.
Our flu shot, then a booster, then another booster. And I'll say, people are starting to die. Where'd you hear that? What are you, one of those conspiracy theorists? What are you, a cult member? Extremist, one of them? Here in the NFL,
funny.
Crazy conspiracy theorist.
He is so darn animated. Oh my gosh. The heavily vaccinated. Oh, it's not really funny that people dropped over dead, but I just loved him. Yes, we're all a bunch of crazy conspiracy theorists that are getting more level-headed by the day. By the way, I think our stuff is coming true a lot faster than theirs. So thank you guys for watching, for sharing. Like, share, subscribe, hit the bell, go to auditthevotepA.com, check out our work, donate if you can, and I will see you guys in 2 weeks on this format again. Have a great night.